And as Nigeria moves towards the inauguration of the next administration, experts in the environmental field have come out with key policy steps to address the threat of climate change and launch the country into a new era of industrial development and economic growth. Climate experts and the leader of the Society for Planet and Prosperity, Chukwumerije Okereke, says after months of research, the group has unraveled 11 key steps and decisions that would transform the country if taken in the next 5 years. And climate experts and the president of Society of Planet and Prosperity, Professor Chukwumerije Okereke, joins us now. Very warm welcome to Newsnight, at least a bit of issues that affect the environment away from politics, you know.
Thank you,
now,
Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chukwumerije. One major issue about articulating and mitigating the issue of climate change in Nigeria seems to have been brought to the fore, where in 2021, the government, you know, there was an act established or that was passed, you know, first to achieve greenhouse gas emission and set an agenda, a standard to eliminating or curtailing it to a very minimal level of between 2050 and 2070. Is Nigeria really pursuing that? Are we walking in the right direction to achieving that?
Well, thanks first, Chris, for having me. To a degree, we are making the right kind of noises, and we are walking, you could say, in the right direction. By the way, I played a significant role in drafting the Climate Change Act, and it was a thing of joy when, despite all the opposition that we got from, in some cases, unexpected quarters, the president went ahead to assent to the act. Now, the act makes Nigeria one of the first African countries and among the elite 12 or 13 countries in the world to have a framework climate change act that establishes by law that we will reduce our emission and aim for net zero by between 2060 and 2070.
Yeah.
The government has now also made a very bold step by inaugurating the National Council on Climate Change and appointing Dr. Salisu Dahiru as the Director General. So we commend this. However, the report that you have just referenced and the research that we have done shows that while Nigeria has done quite a lot in terms of policy making,
paperwork,
which should not be dismissed, we haven't done anywhere near enough in terms of actual implementation. Let me give some examples that will stagger you. You know, Togo at the backyard here has the highest or one of the largest solar farms in West Africa, generating about 70 megawatts of electricity from solar. Now, California now generates up to 14% of its energy from solar. I just came back from the United States of America at the invitation of the U.S. Department of State, and we were in the White House talking about this. And they are willing to support Africa, and Nigeria specifically. But the government of America wants to show evidence that we are interested in implementing. If you go to California, we have up to 37 kilometers of wind farm, about 122 football field. Supplying, as I said, nearly 14% of California electricity.
Yeah, and that brings me to my question. I mean, you highlighted 11 measures the government must take if we are going to meet the target of net zero country or economy by 2060, as we have pledged to the world. And I'm looking at the first few measures you mentioned: a strong focus on generating renewable electricity both on and off grid, minimum of 30% of on-grid electricity for renewables. And you have elimination of diesel and gasoline generators for electricity generation by 2030. 2030 is just 7 years away, if I'm not wrong in my maths. Yeah. And I'm wondering how realistic all of this. Even the power companies in Nigeria rely on generator to generate power for their offices. And you're saying we need to do this. How realistic?
Well, that's a very good point. I was taught that when there is a will, there is always a way. And I believe that the problem is not the technical feasibility. California, Togo, South Africa, in Bembao, in Egypt.
Should we really be calling South Africa now? They are in the same category. They is in the same category.
Even though they generate more power.
They generate far more power from wind than any other African
power
country.
outages. At the turn of the century, when I was in South Africa, you can never hear of any power outage.
We can come to that because that's partly because of climate change. But if you compare the two countries,
let's just go.
If you compare the two countries, we are nowhere near. We are generating 6,000 megawatts. Okay, South Africa is generating 40,000 megawatts. There's no justification. We can't even compare. Ghana, if they take light for more than 3 hours in Ghana, there will be uproar.
They take light for more than that.
No. There will be an uproar.
The economy is not anything to truly write home about, or their electricity situation, but let's concentrate on this.
I think on research, there is no comparison between the amount of...
Let's concentrate on this. Ghana is overhyped, you know.
Well, I've just returned from Ghana 2 weeks ago. But anyway, Nigeria, I don't see how anyone can be bold enough to defend what we have. We have 200 million people. We export energy to even Ghana and many other African countries. And we're debating which country is better. 6,000 megawatts for 200 million people. Yeah. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. That's absolutely, there's no basis.
What should be the agenda for the incoming president?
Adesuwa has itemized some of them, and I was speaking to them.
I mean, we know that they're all paper. You agreed with me as an expert in that area that they're all policies, paper policies. Straight one that can be put into practice. I remember some few years ago, Mr. President was in Paris for the Climate Change Summit, and he pledged 10 million trees in how many years?
Correct.
Ask the Nigerian Institute of Forestry Research if they've been planting trees.
So I don't understand the conversation. Me and you are on the same side. We are saying there's been a lot of promises. And this report is identifying specific measures to help to sharpen the debate, the focus, to say to any incoming government, leave aside all the papers. We've identified 11 specific measures you can take from tomorrow to begin to transform our economy, to create jobs, to address the issue of poverty, while also addressing climate change. This is what makes the report unique, that it is about 10 pages long, no much of Turenchi, just saying here are the things that if you could begin to do them from tomorrow, you will be generating jobs, you will be diversifying the economy, and you will be reducing carbon and building resilience.
Interestingly, I did not see anything about water management and irrigation in your report, in those 11 measures. Don't you think that's important?
There are 2 water management related measures.
Okay.
Number one, we have, well, 3 really, as Christine has actually been saying. One of the things we say is plant at least 20 million trees. That is in itself a water management type of measure because the tree covers will help to ensure that we don't have plenty of runoff and then conserve water. But we also say that we have to recharge and restore Lake Chad. That is one of the biggest things we can do today to ensure greater resilience and help to mitigate a little bit of the header farmer crisis.
Absolutely.
And we also said that we should actually be doing, I think number 3 is to really go massive on agroforestry and forest restoration, which is also part of a water management scheme.
Professor Okereke,
Chukwumerije.
Thank you so much for this interesting conversation on climate change. And we do hope that we do make that shift from paper policy to actual implementation, which is a big problem we have on our hands in any spheres we turn to. But we must thank you for the work you're doing so far.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.